Hey guys, Maniac here with GameAccess.net, joined by my cohort DiscReader117. What's up, man?
Not much, dude.
Well, it's Halloween. Well, you know what time it is. I think it's time for a new movie of the week. And the movie of the week that we got for you guys, well, basically for this year, because we haven't done one in about a year, is yet another horror movie starring Edward Furlong, Brainscan. This is yet another movie that I saw. One of very few movies that actually had to do with gaming, and this was, of course, made back in the days of just when CD-ROM was taking off, back right before the dawn of the Windows 95 era, and it's again a horror film. Go figure, right? All these gaming related movies are all ending up being horror films.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's not really that bad one. I first saw it on HBO about 10 years ago after it got released, and right now, I'm sure anybody with an iPhone or computer access can watch this on Crackle. They've been playing it on Crackle quite a bit, and before that it was on demand. So there's a pretty good chance you guys can get a chance to watch it yourselves. Unfortunately, because of copyright and stuff like that, I can't include any clips of the movie along with this video, but like I said, you can just watch it on Crackle if you really want to. It should be cycling through there. So, the movie is about Edward Furlong, who plays Michael Brown, I'm sorry. And basically when we first are introduced to Michael, he's basically having a bad dream, if you will.
Flashback more.
Yeah, and he's basically imagining a car accident he had when he was a child, which basically cost the life of his mother, and he caused a limp in his leg. So immediately we know that this main character is damaged goods. He's also basically a pervert. The first scene in the movie, he's looking at his neighbor through his camera. His neighbor Kimberly, who lives right next door and for some odd reason keeps her windows open at all times, even when she's changing out of her clothes. Yeah, even he says at one point, he's one sick puppy. So immediately we kind of that's our hero. Our hero is basically a guy that seems to be pretty much out there. But that is indeed our protagonist. And the funny thing is that all the early stuff that they used to set him up, really, it goes to some odd, but for some odd reason it doesn't really impact his character really that much, and I'll get into that in just a second. To move on, basically, the guy is obsessed with horror movies. Very early on in the movie, he's actually watching a movie with a bunch of his classmates in school, in the school computer lab. Basically a movie that Brad Jones would probably review on his Synopsis site called Death, Death, Death Part 2. And early on we see that it's been shut down. His horror club has been shut down by the principal, and he's told that what has to happen is that everything he gets from then on has to be viewed by the principal and accepted by the principal before it can be shown. Shouldn't you have that already? Shouldn't you have that kind of policy already? It is your school. I respect that. Have that policy in place already. But that aside, get to the point where he finds out from his best friend Kyle about this game called Brainscan, which is supposed to be like the new major interactive CD-ROM. He plays it. He plays it through the television's blinking signal, and he finds out that it basically affects his mind. In that, it's when instead of watching the TV, you basically feel as if you're the killer. And it turns out that actually the murders that he was committing through the game were actually real. It's never really explained if that was supposed to be the point of how the game itself was supposed to work, that the game was actually supposed to make you commit murder, or if it was just maybe a side effect of how it affected his brain or something like that.
I think it's more of a just kind of trick your mind into doing exactly what you don't want to do, your worst fear, kind of. And also the Brainscan operators did say before he ordered the game that everybody's game was different. Yeah. That everybody's game was affected differently. And he was chosen what game it was just based upon when he dialed up the company and asked for the game on the telephone. They basically determined what it was, either randomly or based upon what he had said to them over the phone. They did this weird thing where they kind of seemed like they were doing something to him over the phone, and before he made this decision, but it's kind of odd. So fast forward, we realize that he's committing murders, and he, ironically enough, for a person that's so maladjusted, when he realizes that the murder that he had committed did happen, he actually doesn't want to play anymore.
Now, the whole concept is that you basically, the rules of the game is that you basically have to start playing, you affect the game in such that you have a time limit. There are 4 discs in the series. Each disc has to be played in sequence, and you can only play each disc once. You have to play all 4 discs in order to beat the game, and each individual disc has a time limit. Now, it's never really explained what the impact of the time limit is, other than the fact that it probably has to do with the fact of how you play the game, and if you run out of the time limit, whatever the game has you under wears off or something like that. Except to say the fact that you are screwed if the game is over while you're playing, especially if it's happening in reality, like it's supposed to be happening to Michael. Either the hypnosis will wear off, or he'll be left on his own, or something like that, and probably get arrested. Or both. Yeah, exactly. So he has to basically play through all the discs. Now, like any well-adjusted person, ironically enough, the game spends all this time. I mean, you were saying this earlier. What were you saying earlier about him being well-adjusted and everything else? It's like, it seems like, you're setting up this guy to be so messed up in his head based upon his damaged goods and everything else. What were you saying? You say it.
Basically, they're putting you up to make it seem like how his dead mother is going to affect it. The memory that they show in the beginning of the car crash is going to somehow affect into the game when really, or into the movie when really it does nothing at all. Just kind of there to maybe take him more time. Yeah, it seems like they were trying to set up the character as damaged goods, but they never follow through with it. He always seems to act, I mean, like, what it seems to do is by setting the guy up, first off in the very early beginnings of the movie, as first off a guy who's basically traumatized by a childhood accident and the death of his mother, also for the fact that he's basically turning to horror films because of his trauma. He's also a pervert, He's also, let's face it, he's also a pervert. He acts like an everyman, and once all this stuff starts happening, in the very, basically you've done everything you possibly can in the very early portions of the movie to detach the main character from the audience. Then once the whole event starts happening of the actual movie, once you start getting to the meat of the plot of the story, where he starts, playing the game and starts accidentally killing people, he doesn't act like, I mean, you would imagine that a person who starts playing this movie and starts realizing that the murders he's committing, if he was mentally deranged, as the movie might have been suggesting, would have been like, all right, I'll keep playing. This is fun. When in fact, no, he's just like you or I would have acted like this if, the murders were an accident. They were not intended. He did not intend to kill people. He only did it because of the influence of the game, which was not what he was told was going to happen when he started playing. And trust me, if he was probably told this was what was going to happen, he wouldn't have played in the first place. That's pretty normal. That's a pretty normal reaction. So the only reason he continues to play is because of the impact of the Trickster. The Trickster is the avatar of the game itself, possibly the persona of the game or something like that. You like the Trickster. What did you think of the Trickster? I saw him as a mixture of David Bowie's hair with Alice Cooper's face, kind of.
He was kind of like as a persona of like a rock star, and you kind of like that because that was kind of what he was going through. Michael had all over his room, all these Alice Cooper posters and Aerosmith posters. You could just tell that he was a huge, huge fan of like all that, music as well. In fact, actually, when the Trickster first comes in, he goes to go through a CD collection and says, "Michael, if you got anything good," and he starts playing a Primus CD. Yeah. Can't blame him, of course, but there you go. So yeah, he did have this rock star flavor, but what was he? He was the guy that was constantly goading Michael to continue to play. It seemed like he was the persona of the Brainscan avatar or something like that, the person that was guiding him through the game while he was under the game's influence directly. Now, the whole idea of how the heck this guy exists, because he does some pretty crazy stuff in the course of the movie. He goes through the phone lines, he talks to Michael in his head while he's doing this, he's calling people, he's interacting with people occasionally in the course of the movie. Who is he? Where the heck did he come from? And how is it that this guy is real? Yeah. Well, the truth is that in all likelihood what was going on was the fact that Trickster was in all likelihood. It was more likely explained at the end of the movie, and I'll talk about at the end of the review. The Trickster's persona was basically that if Michael was under the influence of the game once, the game could have left something in his head, basically. And that's how I kind of bought it when I was playing the movie. So it did make sense that he'd be interacting with the Trickster. And throughout most of the movie, the Trickster was interacting with Michael directly. Anything that Michael saw that the Trickster manipulated could have simply just been Michael's own mind's eye, basically, based upon what the game could have left in his head or something.
Side effects.
Right. Mostly the other stuff that was going on, stuff with the phone lines and stuff like that, you know, Trickster calling people, that made sense because whenever he called Brainscan, he got the Trickster.
Yeah.
So that made perfect sense. So I mean, my father, when he saw the movie a while ago, did not like the Trickster at all, but then again, you're not supposed to like this guy. This guy is like the id. This guy is like the antithesis.
He's the antagonist of the movie.
Right, he's basically saying, I'm going to help you. You know, I'm here to help you. You got to keep playing. And he's told, look, you play through all 4 of the discs, you'll get off. You know, you will get off on this. You know, you won't go to jail for murder. You'll get away with it. And so Michael doesn't really believe him, or at the very least, at some points in the movie, he's ready to literally turn himself in, as I'm sure anybody would have initially done it. But he doesn't have the opportunity. Like when he goes to go see the detective who's investigating the first crime scene, you almost think he's ready to just up and say, hi, I did it. But the detective just says, get out of here, kid. You know, that sort of thing. And we'll talk more about that later on. Now I want to just talk a little bit about Kimberly, his neighbor. There was, what do you think of Kimberly?
I don't know.
You don't know what you think of Kimberly. Well, like she was the female love interest of the movie. She was the cute girl, basically. She was his cute neighbor, Michael's cute neighbor. It was obvious that Michael had a thing for her. It was kind of maybe discerned that maybe she had a thing for him too.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of leave it at that, for at least for right now with the review. So what happens is that Michael basically discovers that he can't remember anything about what happens with the second disc. He doesn't remember it at all. He had videotaped himself doing it almost as to see what, was it real? Was he doing something? And when he turns on the tape after he comes to, he realizes that he had left his room after basically starting the game. And when the timer started, he was gone. And he was like, he didn't leave. It was supposed to be fake, but the game was affecting him to leave. And of course, it turns out that he had killed his best friend because apparently his best friend was a witness or something like that, or some kind of immaterial witness. It's kind of foggy about that. He wouldn't have really known anything. So unfortunately, he continues to play because he's being goaded on. The games keep coming, or it's just mysteriously start appearing with new parts and stuff like that. The third time he goes out to do this, we have an interesting play where there's a neighborhood watch going on, because by that point there's 2 dead in the neighborhood, and the police are basically running a neighborhood watch. What happens is that the neighborhood watch basically has guns. And I know you're a big Second Amendment proponent, I totally respect that. But he did it for safety reasons, you know, it's like, don't have guns because you could shoot the person next to you kind of thing. It's dark, there are woods, there are no street lights. For all you know, you could shoot the guy next to you, and what happens? They shot a cop. They shot a cop. So at one point, actually, Michael, there were 2 deaths in the third time he plays. Neither one of them are actually caused by Michael. The first one's the first one is an accident. Somebody grabs him while he's out there. It was actually the principal grabs him while he's out there. Basically starts physically trying to manhandle him with absolutely no evidence whatsoever that Michael had done anything wrong other than the fact that he was out late at night. And he accidentally, knocks himself into a construction yard where he gets a ton of bricks falling on him. Not Michael's fault. Michael didn't cause that. I mean, the guy did it to himself, practically. It was an accident, but he basically provoked it. It was the principal that provoked it. The other one was, of course, the neighborhood watch movement, which basically shot a cop that came out. The cop had basically realized what Michael had done, that he was trying to cover his tracks, was basically doing some investigation with his weapon out, because he thought maybe the guy was still out there. Neighborhood watch sees the guys with guns and shoots him. Doesn't make a lot of sense, well, actually, it's like, this is kind of why you would not have a weapon. But, that's maybe like a horror movie. It basically says, oh, these people, anybody in a horror movie are pretty much idiots, but, he kind of skated that line. I wouldn't call them outright idiots, but it did definitely skate that line. And of course, because of the confusion, Michael leaves. The neighbor sees him basically walking and realizes exactly what's up at this point, that, Michael, what's Michael been doing? And he realizes that the fourth part is to kill her.
Yeah.
And that's basically what it was all leading up to, was that, you know, that was what the fourth part was going to have to be. He, it seems like he really doesn't want to do it. You know, again, it seemed like he really didn't want to do it. And the movie had some serious tension about that. That's actually something that was going on. You know, tension is what makes a movie. And what did you think of the tension? Was the movie tense? I mean, you watched it twice.
Yeah, it was pretty tense. I mean, it was leading up to... It was hard to expect the ending more than any other game until, like, he actually said, there's one more witness. It was kind of obvious then that he had to kill his neighbor, but up until then, you really didn't know what was going to happen at the end. So it did draw a good amount of tension.
I thought, well, I mean, what I was talking about with the tension was that, you know, you basically got all these, will he play, will he not play?
Yeah.
Is he going to get arrested? Because the cops are investigating the murders while everything is going on. So, is he going to play, is he not going to play, could determine, will he turn himself in, will he just kill himself or something? That you know, I thought that was interesting. That's kind of another reason why I like the movie, because it did have some tension. For a B movie, it was tense. Edward Furlong actually did a pretty good performance too. I thought he did that right off the heels of like Terminator 2. I thought he did a pretty good performance. Anyways, to basically flash forward about what happens, he does decide to play the fourth disc, but he doesn't bring himself to kill her. He can't bring himself to kill her. He doesn't do it. He can't bring himself to do it. And he goes all the way to her house. He goes all the way to her bedroom while she's sleeping. He can't bring himself to kill her. The Trickster intervenes and tries to take, you know, tries to kill her.
Yeah.
Tries to make him kill her. He won't. He still won't do it. And then the police show up and shoot him dead. And then, at which point he wakes up. Basically, everything that he'd done from part one, you know, from literally from the first time he played, was all basically all of the
person's voice comes on the phone. Thank you for playing. Brainscan, any side effects, yada yada yada.
This isn't real. It was a joke. You know, that sort of thing. Let me tell you something. He goes into a fit and smashes his whole room up. It was a good, you know, it was a realistic moment, certainly. I don't know how any of those games would have passed FCC or FA, you know. They certainly would have worked on high-definition television. The .com won't work on high-definition televisions anymore. They certainly would have worked because it required the blanking signal of the television to be perfect, so only it would have worked on like a CRT tube or something, which is what he was using. But, yeah. What'd you think of, you know, so what'd you think of the movie? I mean, like, it fast forwards, everything is, you know, everything's okay, everything's hunky-dory. It's back to the day one where he first played. He actually decides to go over to the party that he was missing. He asks Kimberly out. She says no at first, but then she changes her mind and says, yeah, maybe. And then she kind of gives him a little peck on the lips to kind of show she changed her mind, you know. And so that was the end of it. Okay, just wrap it up right now. What did you think of the movie overall?
Very good, very realistic in the ways that most things happen. Maybe one or two that they could have improved on, but very realistic.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well. I thought the direction was really good. I liked the atmospheric. I liked the room that they kind of showed, like all the horror influences that he was getting. That was a testament to the director, certainly. It was very good direction. I didn't like the opening title sequence because it seemed a bit disjointed. He's having to sleep during the daytime and stuff like that. That was my one major problem with it. That's a small problem. I mean, the title sequence you can kind of get away with it. What's real, what's not real. I like the ending too, where basically at the very end he gives them the principal, who actually is alive, who has been alive, you know, gives him the game to play. Says, here, this is what I'm going to show at the horror club next week. Okay, I'll take a look at this. I'm going to enjoy it. And then the Trickster just smiles in the background, like, I'll be seeing you soon. And you kind of, it kind of ends on a big smile, where basically it's like, it's all a joke, you know, it's all a game, it's not real. But he'll be having some fun with that. And it was a mind's eye kind of thing with the Trickster, you know, appearing at the very end. So I get that. It was a good. I liked it. I enjoyed it a lot. It was. I mean, it was disappointing to see that, you know, you had gamers. You know, again with another horror movie that involved gamers. But for the most part, he acted like it's like a well-adjusted human being would have acted. He was horrified. You know, he keeps saying it wasn't supposed to be real. I buy that. You know, it was. That's how I would have acted. That's how he would have acted, I'm sure. So that to me was like the heart of the movie. Was that, you know, here he is doing these things that are, you know, he's a gamer, he's a horror buff, he's completely traumatized about all this stuff, and yet he's still realistic to realize that if he's been doing all this stuff, it's wrong. You know, it's wrong. And it was a good movie. It was an enjoyable movie. I liked it a lot. pretty much it. Happy Halloween, everybody. This has been a review of Brainscan. And if you want to check it out, you can check it out on Crackle. This is Maniac with Disc Reader 117 and GameAccess.net. Over and out.